There that makes you more confident in the strategy? We heard about some ramping up this expeditionary forces, more airstrikes. Is that all?
Well, I mean, my sense is that is what we heard. Events dictate that the president ramps things up somewhat. My concern is he never ramps it up enough to make a difference. It's always just kind of responding to events. So we're a step behind where the threat is. I have a lot of confidence in these guys, but the other thing is, as was very explicit, if you want to go from 3,500 to 3,520 in Iraq, you got to get the president to approve it. And so as I mentioned at the first, this micromanagement of the military, it continues to be very concerning to me.
So you didn't hear anything in there that makes you think that they're backing off this, or that these changes are indicative that the military's got a freer hand?
No, I didn't see anything that indicates the military has a freer hand. Now, the idea that you're going to send folks in there to help target airstrikes, that's a change. The president has not allowed that before. After Paris, now the president allows that. But we're still, again, it seems like we're one step behind responding rather than, okay, what does it take to really defeat this enemy? Let's go do that. Military, go do it. We're not, I don't get that yet.
Beyond the 4-star, what do you think we need on the ground to defeat Islamic State?
Well, that's where you need the military to tell us. This is what it takes to defeat on the ground. I mean, again, the consensus of opinion from most of the people who have written and spoken about this is more special operations, more forward controllers, airstrikes. In the piece y'all probably saw, Vickers said we had more airstrikes in the first 2 months in Afghanistan than we've had in 16 months in Iraq and Syria. Sorry. I'm still concerned about how you develop a ground force in Syria. And, General Dunford was trying to be careful, but sure, if we had an inclusive government in Iraq, yes, that's the best. Is there any chance of that happening with the Iranians calling the shots? I don't know.
Carter described special operations troops in Iraq and Syria carrying out raids, capturing ISIL leaders. Are those things you're okay with, and do you see that as an escalation of the mission?
See, just to back up for a second, I'm okay with it if that is part of a greater strategy for success against ISIL. What I'm not okay is, okay, we'll do a little more of this and try it and do a little more of that, and that's the sense I get from these folks. I don't get that the president allows there to be a strategy for success, and I think that has a deterrent effect up and down the chain of command. If you know you've got to go all the way to the president himself to get 25 more people in Iraq, does that not discourage the commander in Iraq and CENTCOM and others from asking? Because that's a big deal to go to the president and say, I need 25 more people to do such and such. So it's that micromanagement, I think, that has a dampening effect on military.
But that does seem to be what Secretary Carter said they're doing. They're going to try this, see how successful it is, and see. So in that light, are you worried that they're going to take that approach and they're going to put folks in Syria in harm's way without a larger, better strategy to it?
Yeah, I am concerned about that, and I'm concerned that our people you put in harm's way need a certain amount of support and logistics and medevac and all of those things. And they could not go into those details in an open session, but it's certainly some of the concerns that we will express or ask about moving forward. But the broader point that you make that I'm trying to I think agree with is there needs to be a strategy for success, and then whatever special operations, number of troops, number of airstrikes to accomplish that's what you go. You don't say, okay, we'll have 10 more planes or 20 more people. And that seems to be all, and every one of those, by the way, has to be approved by the president. That's what's concerning here.
Do you see any discussion coming up about changing the rules of engagement? taking the cap off.
Discussion by...
I don't
It's the
even
commander in
know.
chief. I mean, you know, so...
Could that be something that got included? We heard a lot about the authorization for use of military force today.
Oh, I don't think you'll ever see Congress set a cap. I mean, I hope not. You know, by the way, we had hearings in here, even though it's not our jurisdiction, on the proposed authorization for the use of military force, and nobody could define enduring offensive ground combat operations. And so I was tempted at the end to go back and start asking some of those questions, but obviously we were over 3 hours, and I don't think it was appropriate. But the point was, yeah, the president sent up a proposal that nobody could defend or even define. Now, I still think we ought to have a UMF, and you know, I think this new speaker is looking at that.
But you're saying that you don't see the president changing the rules of engagement at all, even
Well,
if...
I don't know. Somebody else is going to have to tell you what the president is considering. It seems to me the president has been a step behind events, and several steps behind the threat. And General Dunford, I think, today talked about the threat growing beyond Iraq and Syria, in Libya, Egypt, Afghanistan. What else did he? Yemen, Boko Haram in Nigeria. So, you know, it's growing, and we're still behind, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I got to go vote.
Senators McCain and Graham said they called for like 20,000 more troops in Iraq and Syria. You're not willing to put a number on it?
No, I want a strategy to succeed. You know, 20,000 troops with a restrictive rules of engagement are not going to be terribly effective. So, you know, it's not just numbers. It's what you're authorized to do.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for being here.